Flies circle the buffalo's eyes and nostrils in a loose, moving halo. His head sways to displace them, and they resettle within seconds. Along the softer skin behind his ears and beneath his jaw, ticks sit swollen and gray, some the size of a small bean, gripping folds where the hide has no protection. Dried mud cakes his flanks in cracked gray plates, flaking at the edges where he has rubbed against something rough. His ears twitch in a rhythm that never quite settles, flicking left, then right, then both together, and every few minutes his hide twitches in a sudden shudder that runs from shoulder to hip, a reflex called the paniculus response, triggered by the touch of insect legs on skin. He's an old bull, heavy through the shoulders, with a horn boss thick enough to have taken years to fuse solid across his skull. Large Cape buffalo bulls can weigh well over 700 kilograms, occasionally approaching 900, and that mass works against him here. Ticks favor exactly the places his own tail and teeth cannot reach. The base of the ears, the folds of the neck and shoulder, the join where the leg meets the belly, the groin, and the soft skin inside the thighs. Between the toes, in the space above each hoof, ticks and biting flies gather where sweat collects and the skin stays damp. None of this is visible at a glance. It shows up as behavior first, and how often he moves. Over the next while, he works through what limited tools he has. He rubs his shoulder against the trunk of a leadwood tree, shifting his weight to press harder, then pivots to work the other side. Bark can scrape loose ticks and dislodge dried mud, though it rarely reaches parasites embedded deep in the skin. He drops to his front knees and rolls in a patch of bare dust, coating his back and flanks in a fine gray layer. Dust and dried mud can smother some external parasites and block biting flies from reaching skin directly, which is likely part of why this kind of rolling is so common among buffalo, even without standing water nearby. None of it clears the problem. He stands, shakes once from nose to tail, and starts walking. The ground changes under his hooves, from cracked dry soil to soft mud, then to the cooler give of wet sand at the river's edge. He wades in without hesitation, first to his knees, then his belly, until the water reaches part way up his sides. The transition takes less than a minute. Once submerged to that depth, more than half his body sits underwater, out of reach of the flies that had been working his eyes and nostrils on dry land. The first fish arrive within moments, small and pale-bellied, approaching his front legs in short, testing movements. They circle near a hoof, retreat, circle again. One noses at a patch of mud clinging to his lower leg. Their exact species is not established here, and African rivers hold a wide range of small fish that feed opportunistically on organic matter, so naming one without confirmation would be a guess. What is observable is the behavior itself. Repeated, close contact with the submerged skin, concentrated wherever there is a visible mark, a scrape, or a patch of matter clinging to the hide. More fish gather as the minutes pass. What started as 3 or 4 becomes a loose cloud numbering in the dozens, then more, drawn by the same disturbance and by whatever the earlier fish have already dislodged. They work along his hooves and up his lower legs, into the angle behind his knees, along the loose skin of his belly, and into the crease where his thigh meets his flank. Some hold nearly still against his hide for a second or two before darting off. Others return to the same fold of skin again and again for as long as he stays in the water. What they are eating is not uniform. Algae and biofilm coat submerged skin within minutes in warm water, and some of these fish are almost certainly grazing that layer rather than anything belonging to the buffalo himself. Others appear to target loosened flecks of dead skin, mud residue, or organic debris stirred up by his movement. Freshwater ticks that have dropped off or drowned, along with fly larvae and other small invertebrates near the riverbed, may also draw fish in. Whether any of them are removing live, attached ticks directly from his hide is not something that can be confirmed from behavior alone. and claiming so would go past what is actually visible. Above the surface, a different kind of activity arrives. 2 red-billed oxpeckers land on his back within a few wing beats of each other, gripping his hide with sharp, curved claws built for exactly this kind of perch. They move in short hops across his shoulders, up along his spine, and out onto the base of his horns, pausing to probe with slim, flattened bills into the skin around his ear canals and into the wrinkles at the back of his neck. A third bird lands near his tail and works forward along his flank, stopping wherever the hide creases. Red-billed oxpeckers eat ticks, and a bull carrying this many is exactly the kind of host they seek out. But the relationship is not as clean as it is sometimes described. Research on oxpeckers has documented them feeding at open wounds, picking at scabs and drinking blood, and in some cases, returning to the same sore often enough to slow its healing. They also take blood-engorged ticks over unfed ones when given the choice, which points to an interest in blood as much as in pest control. None of that erases the ticks they do remove. It means the birds are following their own feeding needs rather than performing a service for the buffalo's benefit. The 2 zones of activity do not overlap. Fish work below the surface, drawn by algae, debris, and whatever the water conceals. Oxpeckers work above it, drawn by ticks and by the wounds and blood that often come with them. His submerged skin and his exposed back are, in effect, 2 separate feeding grounds, visited by animals that never interact with each other and answer to entirely different pressures. Cape buffalo herds in this kind of habitat can carry heavy tick loads, particularly during the wet season when species such as amblyomma and rhipicephalus ticks expand in number and stay active in the damp vegetation buffalo pass through daily. An older bull moving alone or at the edge of the herd often carries a heavier burden than younger animals still traveling within the tight core of the group, where mutual contact and shared movement offer some incidental protection. Standing in water for an extended period is one of the few tools available to reduce that load, by taking flies out of the equation entirely and giving fish access to areas otherwise impossible to reach. He shifts his weight, but keeps his hooves planted, and his ears, still visible above the surface, move less often now than they did on the riverbank. Some tail movement continues. A fish brushes the inside of his thigh, and he does not react. Whether this reflects reduced irritation or simple habituation to constant contact is not something his behavior alone can confirm, though the drop-in-air movement is a measurable change from how he stood on dry ground less than an hour earlier. Time passes, and neither the fish nor the birds finish their work in any complete sense. Fish continue moving along his legs and belly. Oxpeckers keep shifting position across his back, occasionally flying off and returning. Ticks remain attached in places neither species has reached, tucked into folds too tight for a bird's bill or too shallow underwater to draw the attention of fish that are mostly following visible debris. The buffalo stands where he is, submerged past his belly, unmoved by either. What this scene actually shows is 2 unrelated feeding strategies converging on the same animal, because his size, his tick load, and his decision to enter water created opportunity in 2 different places at once. The fish did not follow him from the savannah. The oxpeckers did not wait for him at the river. Each group responded to conditions that happened to exist on the same bull, on the same afternoon, in the same stretch of water.